Well, hey friends, welcome to Real Talk. I am not Scott Bach Hansen. My name is JoAnn. I'm the Director of Student Ministries, and I work with our Upward Basketball program as the league director. And wherever you're tuning in, I'm just so glad that you're here. This video series is our weekly check-in, and it's a way for us to connect and to get to know a bunch of different people in this kind of video format. It's not an interview, it's just more of me offering whatever it is I have to offer. And so I'm just really excited to be here. Scott, thanks for having me whenever you watch this. And so today I just really wanted to talk about discernment, and I wanted to share some space about my own discernment and how I kind of got to Herndon and kind of what my next steps are. And just to give a off the bat, this is not me saying I'm leaving, because that's absolutely not. I actually just celebrated my 1 year of working here at Herndon, and it has been a very full, fun, exciting year that I'm just so grateful for. And so I hope that we'll kind of just talk through that together. I'll talk a little bit more about what ordained ministry is and how kind of my vocation fits into that. But anyway, so enough about the outline. Let me just give you the content. So when I was hired on, I was at a point in my vocational discernment in grad school that I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, or if church ministry was where I wanted to be. I had come into seminary thinking that I wanted to, or felt very called towards like the path of the elder, which is what Pastor Jonathan is. And I wanted to itinerate from church to church. And then I took a religious education class, and I took this class and it really transformed and shifted my understanding of vocation. And it's far beyond what we can give back to the institution of the church, and more about who are we created to be, who is God creating and calling us to be, and how ultimately, like, how are we using the breath in our bodies to create a world of just and goodness. And so that really changed my life very genuinely. And then the pandemic happened, and 2020 rolled around in the middle of this class. And like for many of us, it caused this pause on a lot of plans and a lot of future oriented things. And so I remember I was out at Weston on the James, the summer camp that I've worked at before. And we had just made the decision to cancel camp, and it was just really a very sad time. So I was out at camp with 780 acres of the great outdoors and myself, which was a time. And I remember I was sitting in the rocking chair, and it was just a lovely night out, and I was looking at the stars and just reflecting and thinking on all the things. And I had this moment where I was like, I don't know if ordained ministry, if being an elder is what I'm supposed to do next. And I just had this like feeling in my gut and I don't get gut feelings a lot. So when they come around, it's like it's a pretty big deal. And I remember just saying, like, I'm not sure what's next. But I knew that I needed a break. And I knew that writing my ordination papers, which is usually what happens in your third year of seminary for most people, I just had this feeling that was not what I was supposed to do next. And I also had a feeling too that it was time for me to leave the church job that I had served at for 2 years, and I just sensed I have done what I can here, and I'm ready for something different. And so during that summertime, I kind of put in my resignation, and I was trying to figure out, do I serve at another church? Do I work in a different place? And I ended up working at CarMax for a semester, which, if you want to know about how to work with people, I always say working in church ministry or customer service probably gives you a nice idea. And you're like, CarMax, you don't look like somebody who would sell cars. And you're right, I did not. But I did answer the phone a lot, and just to be able to, while there were some calls that were just really kind of out there, to be able to offer to some folks who are like, hey, I'm really having a hard time understanding these things. I'm having a hard time understanding like why this financial thing is the way it is, being able to help communicate that and help people feel heard. While it was not necessarily like this is a ministry, it did feel very, there were definitely a lot of moments where I was able to just show up and be present. And sometimes I'll always tell you that sometimes that is the best thing that we can do for folks. Um, so anyways, I worked at CarMax, was at school full time, and then um, I realized it was very, as much as I loved working at CarMax, it also did not bring me the same amount of joy as working in a church or in a ministry setting did. And so I found myself resigning because I was also working full time and going to school full time. And a lot of that altogether is a lot, and I was exhausted all the time. Um, and I wasn't like, again, it was a point where I didn't know what was next. I just knew that I needed to make an exit. Um, and so January and February of 2021, I was just figuring out um, what my next steps could be. I had talked to my best friend who lives in Richmond, and I was like, hey, do you want to live together? I'm looking for jobs. Wanted to come back to the Virginia conference, wanted to come back to Virginia after living in Atlanta for 3 years. And so we were like, yeah, like this is really great. Um, and one night I was going to apply for another church job, and I found this job posting at Herndon on the conference Facebook, or not the Facebook page, but the website. And I had this moment of like, like this sounds really interesting. Like I wonder what could happen. And then texted out to a couple of my friends, and they were all like, hey, this is your job. Like you need to apply for this. And if you don't, we will be very sad. And I was like, okay. Um, and then somehow, some way, through the grace of God and the work of the Spirit, um, I'm here. And I really do believe like that was a huge God thing for me, and a huge um and has been such a blessing in my life in so many unexpected ways. And um I'm really grateful, and just to see how everything just kind of pieced together, and what I was hoping for from a church and what you all were hoping for, and just having that kind of stitched together really beautifully was really awesome. And when I came in, I was like, hey, I'm kind of like, I'm in the ordination path. I'm a certified candidate, which means I'm ready to write my papers whenever. And then there was this moment of like, I'm really not sure what to do with this piece of information. I'm not really sure about my discernment and all of that. And so the more I've worked here, and the more that I've done a lot of different ministry things, um, I had this moment about a couple months ago where I was in a session with my therapist, and I was talking about how much I just really love the community. I really love the work that I do that is not necessarily about, keeping the church running, but thinking about how do we help the church be of service and asset to the community, um, while also like kind of bridging that gap between the two, and our partnership with the high school and our students and upward basketball and like all these different pieces. And I remember telling my therapist, I was like, I don't want to itinerate. Like, I don't necessarily want to move. Like, I want the flexibility, be able to serve here as faithfully as I can. Um, and he was like, yeah, like, I think that makes a lot of sense. And he was very affirming of all of that. And then a couple hours later, I was sitting at home, and Mallory, our children's director, was working, was working at the house with me, at my house. And I just had this moment where I was like, oh, I see it now. I describe it as the scales falling from my eyes, but really it's more pulling my head out of the sand. And realizing like there is another way that I can serve faithfully in ordained ministry while still being able to serve faithfully here in the Herndon context. Um, and so this is the point where I'll say, like, in the United Methodist Church, we have two distinct orders of ordained ministry. We have the orders of the elder, which is what Pastor Jonathan is. Any other pastors who've itinerated, they are elders. And then we have another order called the Order of the Deacons. And the deacons are called to word, service, compassion, and justice. And they can, and justice, not injustice, just to clarify. And deacons are the folks who are not appointed. So they don't itinerate in the same way that like Pastor Jonathan does. But they are the folks who stand in the threshold. They are the folks who stand in between the church and the world, and they are the interpreters of the world's needs to the church, and then the church's ability to offer hope and restoration in our world. And so that became really clear to me. And Pastor Jonathan will tell you, he's been telling me this for 10 months. And so hooray, hooray, now that we're here and everything. You were right. This is me saying this out loud. Pastor Jonathan, you were right. But what was really funny, or what I think will continue to be funny, because sometimes God and the Spirit are funny like that. That this is the work of the deacon, is the stuff that I've been doing, have been engaged with this whole time, and it's really, um, for me, it's now about, um, being able to understand ordination as a gift, that it's a gift that's entrusted, so that, the mission and vision of the church and the mission and vision of God and Christ are made known, in all places and all spaces. And so, I am still, um, working towards that. And so, what is really exciting, I can tell you that if you go to the General Board of Higher Education and Ministries website, you can do a Google search. They can tell you a lot more about what deacons do. Deacons serve in a lot of different places. They serve in churches. They serve, in extension ministries like nonprofits. I know, United Methodist Family Services. Some may serve on farms or retreat centers. They're the folks in the world on the ground, being in relationship with people. And they will have, like, they have the Reverend title and everything like that. But their ministry is really about connection and and building bridges. Elders do a lot of that work, like it's very similar, but their work is really within the local church and really shaping and forming the community within to be equipped to go out. And so it differs a little bit, but General Board of Higher Education and Ministry has a lot more, in-depth, notes about that and everything. Um, but for me, what's really exciting is that in this next year, I do have to go back and take 2 classes, because in my discernment and questions, I was very stubborn. I was like, hey, these last 2 classes I need for denominational requirements, I'm not going to do them. And if I do want to do them, if it does come back up, we'll make it work. So here I am making it work, and everything. So that'll be happening in May and June. And then, starting in July or August, whenever I get the packet, I will have to write my ordination papers in 4 different areas, do a lot of thorough work with that, practice interviews, and then, this time next year in March, I'll be interviewing, for provisional status as a deacon, and then with the Board of Ordained Ministry. So um, it's a really big thing. And if they say, hey, yes, we believe that you're called, ready, and ready to go, they'll approve me and let me be commissioned at annual conference in June of next year. Um, so that is a very abbreviated way. And if I would love to just chat more about it, because I think it is super important. Um, but it's really exciting. And I really just want to say thank you to the whole of this. Also, before I say thank you though, what will then happen is, after that commissioning stuff, if it does come to pass that that's where it goes, then I get to be appointed back to Herndon, that I get to take the authority that will be entrusted to me, by the bishop, and be able to continue to serve, the Herndon community, our church, and the local community, and the broader, Herndon, Northern Virginia community, in this way. And that is something that I'm just really, really excited about. And um, I can't imagine serving God faithfully any other way else. So I'm really, really excited about that. And so my thank you is to, the general community who's watching this, and to my student, to a lot of folks, about, because I could not imagine that this been my reality a year ago. And I just, to be surrounded and supported by a community who, says, hey, yeah, like, let's do it, is really unmatched. And I'm so grateful. And so that's just a very brief time on my end of things, but I hope that, if you'd like to know more questions or anything, or, follow with me, I'd be more than happy to have a one-on-one conversation. But yeah, so that's a little bit about deacons, a little bit about my discernment, and my next steps. And so, Scott, thank you so much for having me. And I hope that you all have a wonderful week, to stay healthy, stay well. And because it is March, I hope your, March Madness brackets are not suffering too hard. But yeah, I can't wait to see you around church, and have a lovely week. Bye all.